They're going fast.
Yeah, he does that. Are we live now?
Yeah, we're live.
You're in the middle of Bobby Eiler and the white light fixture in the
Jerry.
Jerry Island, the crawl space.
Yeah, he had this, Jerry was we were down there playing, doing something. He has guns, and they were metal, 6-shooter guns. But there wasn't a light bulb in the porcelain light fixture. And he sticks his gun up there and pulled the string. And then there was a light, a blue light. Jerry was blue. He got shot.
Well, I was thinking about the river. Mike's dad was a great guy, wonderful guy, in a lot of ways like a second father to a lot of us. And he used to do something really phenomenal, and that was he would take a bunch of the neighborhood kids to the river with just him as the adult, the Merzine, and he'd fish, and we would run pretty wild, not badly, but we did a lot of interesting things. And I remember when I'd go, he'd always want us to help out by bringing a little food.
Is Greg still in the video?
And he told me, mine was to bring baked beans, a can of baked beans. And I said, how big a can? He said, well, the biggest you can find. And what he was thinking was like a 16 or 24 ounce. Mom and I went to the store at Driftway. They had this deal that, like a 55-gallon barrel. And they showed up with that. But I caught heck about that. Anyway, we'd all pile into the station wagon. Nobody had air conditioning in cars in those days. It really, I guess air conditioning started in about the late 50s for Cadillacs and moved into cars in the mid 60s. But, it was a real expensive option. Most people didn't have them. We'd go down the station wagon, it'd be real hot, and we'd get down there, and we'd all get out, and Doug would take over. And Doug had this idea, we'd put out trot lines, which were lines along the bank with hooks and baited, so that fish might catch them overnight. And Doug had this thing that you had to check the lines late at night. So we could go down to the river in the dark at night, wade out into it, go along the line, and check these. It was just tradition. We had to do that, which seems like a crazy thing with some kids to be doing it. And I remember, was it Steve Kanabe with us? Who had the butcher knife?
That was Kanabe.
Somebody had a knife with them for whatever reason, and they dropped it in the water by the line. So we knew it was in the bottom, and we're all there, and the river's roaring by. And I don't remember we ever caught anything on those lines, but it always, get up, we're going to check the trot line.
Yeah, and the bad part about that was we'd be in a warm sleeping bag or whatever, and then you get up and you had to put on your wet jean shorts from the day before.
Miserable. The river, like a lot of Missouri rivers, would vary in depth based on the rain conditions. One day it could be not much water, the next day it could be a roaring river. And we'd come down this one year, and overnight it'd gone down some, but the main channel, which was probably about 30 feet wide maybe, it was just roaring through there. I mean, it was roaring, and we wanted to get to the other side. Now, we could have gone up the hill and across the bridge and got over, but nah, we'd seen that movie Rogers Rangers, and if you ever seen that, when they're crossing the St. Lawrence, Spencer Tracy goes, we'll make our own bridge, and he grabs a root and he says, just hold on, and he goes, if any of the people slip downstream and drown, the Indians will get them, or whatever, And so Doug decided we were going to be Rogers Rangers, and we strung ourselves across that river. I don't know if we ever made it all the way across, because that water was really pouring through there. I think maybe Mr. McGee at that time was somewhere and said, after a few people washed away for miles, said, you guys shouldn't do that. You remember that?
Yeah.
Rogers Rangers.
You're right, when we were little, we used to just run crazy down there, all up and down around the banks. And we inevitably were all sunburned with poison ivy all over us.
And we never thought about snakes or anything like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember going down to your farm years later, and we were in that little creek, and there was a snapping turtle and some copperheads, you remember, and just about everything in there. Now, I don't know, it did always seem less crowded in the station wagon coming back. Did we lose a couple of people? Or
Plus we had our dog, Kooky.
Kooky, yeah, Kooky was a crazy dog too, chasing those cars.
Yeah. So where are we? When Turner moved in the neighborhood, like Greg said, about 6th grade, I remember this. This was a big turning point in my growth as a young man, because Greg and I, like he said, we used to always get our hand grenades and equipment off the side of his house, and we were still doing that in 6th grade. And Jim didn't have a gun.
Even last year, we're all doing that.
Jim didn't have a gun. I thought that was pretty weird. So I said, we were going down to Greg's. I said, here, you can use one of mine. I remember him taking it and giving me a funny look. Then I remember going home that night and thinking, I guess I'm too old to play guns. So we gave it up, because I think Jim made me feel like we shouldn't be doing that anymore.
We were beginning to migrate into contact sports and
Yeah, and girls.
and basketball. What was that guy? Oh, 4th grade. We're playing basketball.
Right.
Ray. Kids, we know instantly, we know the story. 4th grade basketball principally consists of a scrum of kids sort of roaring down asphalt with other kids diving at them and tackling them and hacking at them, and the ball never being bounced. And every once in a ball will get thrown up in the air. And I don't know if anybody ever scores. But there was this guy named Ray, and he must have been held back 15 or 20 years.
He drove
the bus. It was on Social Security and stuff. He was old and he was big. And Ray, if you happened to break away and you were driving to the basket, would come and just hammer you across the head as hard as he could, just slam you there. He really clocked people all the time. And so you had to do 2 things then. You had to try to control the ball and always know where Ray was.
Yeah.
It was death. Ray ultimately, because he hit so many people, he got suspended for recess forever. And we never saw him again. Actually, never saw him again.
Yeah.
In class, he was gone.
That was 4th grade, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was 4th. That was a dangerous time. Because they also had those poles, and Ray loved to knock you into the pole.
Yeah.
But that was beginning when we began to switch over, and always sports became important for us then.
Plus, in music, we like to pretend, how everyone plays air guitars and stuff.
I don't even want to hear this story. No, this is embarrassing.
We had our own band. None of us could play anything.
My kids will never believe
Greg
I
played a
played
little
no band.
piano, and I played took drum lessons. Is that running?
Mhm.
Okay, it's not blinking, but maybe it's not supposed to.
Just record.
Okay. Anyway, we
actually, you got to differentiate between we had a band and we played in a band.
Yeah, we made our own instruments. We took sticks.
Very, very talented.
And then we'd take cardboard and cut out guitars and, nail them onto the sticks, and then nail where you tune your guitar, that the end of your guitar on there, and we'd paint them and stuff, and we actually put strings on them, and that's what we used to pantomime with. So, the Beatles, Dave Clark 5.
Never could get any good gigs. Nobody hired us.
But a lot of kids pantomimed back then. We were the Sundowners. That was our name. And we always thought, there's something missing. What do we need? We needed a stage. So it might have been part of the Boston Garden. But we made a stage out of wood. It was probably at least 15 feet wide and 10 feet by 15 feet, something like that. And we'd pick it up and carry it to each other's house so we could play on our stage.
We later sold it, and they used it at Woodstock. It's that big.
We painted it even. We painted our stage light blue.
We didn't have many inhibitions in those days. I mean, I don't think anything embarrassed us. We just did it.
Yeah.
It didn't matter if it was wearing football uniforms or playing crazy games in the yard. It was a great childhood.
Did you have anything else on your list?
Oh.
We covered it pretty good.
Oh, well, I didn't talk about us going to Canada. We went to Canada.
Twice.
Mike's dad again took us to Canada, and
7th grade and 9th
we went
grade.
on fishing trips in which Mike and I did not fish.
Not
What
like
we
that.
did is we explored. We explored Canada. There were parts of it that were uncharted, and they needed somebody to do it. Lewis and Clark, Browns and McGee, and
Mostly 7th grade. In 9th grade, we kind of fished a
we
little bit.
a little bit, but we would just take off while they were fishing, and we'd go up into the woods, and there was this old burned out lodge. You remember that lodge we went to? I remember the first time though, we went up to a place called the Outpost. And to get to the Outpost, after we'd gotten up to our place in Canada, which I